Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Folks, today's Friday, August 28th, 2026. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. More questions regarding St. Augustine's University in Raleigh, North Carolina. A real estate deal is getting a level of scrutiny because how could it impact the entire campus? We will explain. Also on today's show, the March on Washington anniversary took place today, led by the Reverend Al Sharpton National Action Network. We'll show you what took place here in the nation's capital. Also, the lead plaintiff in a case that led to a massive settlement for black farmers has passed away. We'll remember him by talking to the leader of the National Black Farmers Association. Also, Congresswoman Maxine Waters makes it perfectly clear black folks should be giving to campaigns, giving to organizations, so we can have a strong ground game to get the vote out in November. Plus, I talk with Maze, the reconstituted Maze, and talk about how things have changed. Now they have the worldwide license to perform the hits of the iconic band. Lots for us to break down. Plus, Jeff Johnson debuts his new show, No Translation. Jeff Johnson, which targets black men. We'll have that for you as well. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the fine. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Folks, for 2 years, we have been covering the constant drama at St. Augustine's University in Raleigh, North Carolina. This HBCU founded in 1867, really has been reeling, if you will. I mean, massive decisions, massive economic problems, financial problems. It's so bad, y'all, they're not even going to have students on the campus this fall. That means a loss of jobs for professors and faculty and staff. The interim president is literally working for free. And it's just so much going on. Now, on Wednesday, we talked about the bankruptcy hearing where the judge, David Warren, was not too happy with the school's previous board. He literally called the board out, okay? The judge did. Now, according to court documents, the school is also going to pay a company called Addison Young a $50,000 retainer that's already been paid as it relates to looking at advising its real estate strategy. Let me say it again. Advises real estate strategy. The firm will also get a percentage of a sale price not to exceed $7.5 million. Now, the sale price, y'all, that's the commission. You see right there, the aggregate sale commissions for land transactions payable to advisors shall not exceed $7.5 million. Now, St. Augustine has a 105-acre campus. It's valued at approximately $200 million. Now, during this hearing, Judge Warren said he was, quote, not overly impressed with the terms of the contract. Neither are bankruptcy administrator Brian Baer nor Self-Help Ventures Fund, the nonprofit that has loaned St. Augustine's a lot of money. Paul Fanning of Self-Help said he has drafted an objection to this plan to St. Augustine's application with Addison Young, and he plans to file it soon. Joining us right now, Steve Williams. He's the former National Alumni Trustee-elect of St. Augustine's University. Glad to have you, Steve. So here's the problem that what we see, and they literally, based upon what alumni has said, is that this contract does not speak to selling some of the land. Pull the contract back up. The language in the contract literally says they can look at advising them on a deal to sell all of the land. Is that your understanding of seeing this contract?
Yeah, that's and first, thank you, Roland, for having me on tonight. But yes, after reviewing it, my concern initially, my first concern was when it was actually filed. It was filed the day before, the night before the actual court hearing on the 20th. So I was actually in the court when it was presented, and everybody looked stunned. Even, everybody was stunned when that came out. So that's just one thing. The second thing is when you start reading it and things of that nature, you see like, okay, they want all 103, but they said the main campus will be, won't be sold. They want to maintain that. But there's no language. There's no protection language in there that protects, and really protects the actual land. But additionally to that, when you really start kind of going a little bit further into it, there's nothing that says they can't pick and choose, what's the main campus. There's nothing in there that says or defines what the main campus is. And really, who's articulating that? There's no strategic plan. There's no vision. So who's articulating what can be the actual main campus in this? So it's just everything in this plan just doesn't seem right. And when you start talking more and more about, when you pointed out the actual commissions, things of that nature, that's where really and truly it starts getting to me, it starts getting dark. Because when you say, okay, up to 7.5 million, they can make in commissions. Well, they can pick and choose what properties they want to actually sell that can come up to that, because it's a commission scale. It goes from, 3% for something that is, valued higher, like something that'll be like, let's say, for instance, $20 million would be 3%. And then something that's less than $20 million will be 5%. So that actually they can pick and choose what properties they want. And then when it really got dark is that in the financing piece, where they say they get 1.5% financing. And what is that? They get a 1.5% financing fee, whether they helped get the financing or not. So that's, to me, that raised a real red flag, because it's saying whether we helped you get the financing or not, we get 1.5%. We get 1.5% of that. So I'm like, wow. So now, it's like, okay, who else did they talk to? Because in the language presented, they said they talked to 10 other firms. Well, total of 10, but 9 other firms. So who else did you talk to? Because we want to see that. And there's nothing in there that lays out who they talked to. They just says, here's the one that we chose, but there's nothing. We had 9 others, but this is the only one. So when you start going into and really looking at it, it just gets really dark, and it just did not add up. It just really didn't add up.
Okay, so let's deal with this first. Did this Board of Trustees communicate, and have they communicated any of this to the St. Aug family?
Roland, to be honest with you, they haven't communicated to alumni in 4 years. And that's why we're sitting up here asking all these questions. And that's why we're sitting back like, what is this? We've sent emails. Our group personally, Falcons Unite, has sent emails. I received a call from, Sophie Gibson when she first was appointed, and she was supposed to have another call with our group so we can talk about how we proceed. We had a conversation with her. I had a conversation with her representing Falcons Unite, but the follow conversation was supposed to be a broader group, which she canceled because she was ill and never rescheduled. So we were never able to have a meeting with any member of the Board of Trustees. And in the 4 years, they haven't met with one single soul. Now, we've heard instances where they've talked to certain people and certain groups of people, but as alumni in totality, they haven't spoken to us in 4 years.
See, this is what I don't understand. This is what I don't understand. And let me be perfectly clear to everybody who's watching and everybody who's listening. Okay? St. Aug alumni reached out to us 2 years ago because they were concerned what's happening on their campus. They've seen our coverage, good and bad, of other HBCUs. They saw our coverage when we went down to Florida for Bethune-Cookman. They've seen the coverage of Florida A&M. They've seen us do stories on Spelman and Morehouse and Tuskegee. We have a whole segment called HBCU Connect. So this isn't like, oh my God, they're targeting HBCUs. In the 2 years that we have been covering, y'all, since June 2024, I want everybody listening to understand what I'm saying. We have invited to come on this show Brian Boulware, the former chair, James Perry, the former chair. We've invited the current chair. We invited the previous presidents. We invited all board members. So there's somebody out there who is saying, oh, y'all presenting a one side. Okay, what's the other side? Explain it. I need the audience to also understand this board only reports to itself. This is a private HBCU. This is not like a public HBCU, which is accountable to state lawmakers. In the case of Texas, the governor appoints the board of trustees. You don't have anything like that here. And so they decide their meetings are not public. We've had numerous alumni tell us we would love to attend a board meeting. They don't even know when the board meets. And so what I don't understand, this is what I don't understand, Steve. With all of this drama, we're now talking multiple years of financial drama. You have a now deceased former president who sued Brian Boulware and another board member for their actions. There have been numerous lawsuits just that have plunged the university into significant issues. Not one time has anybody from St. Aug on the board or the administration said, we will sit down and talk about what's going on. We will, quote, clear the air. We'll explain to people what's going on. They haven't done that. We did our town hall there in Raleigh. We invited the president. We invited Brian Boulware. None of them chose to show up. Now, Brian Boulware is now emailing my producer all of a sudden today. He's now emailing today, upset with our coverage last night, where claiming, oh, he got slandered and there were false statements, when all what I did last night was literally read from the WRAL.com story of what the bankruptcy judge actually said. So I'll say this to Brian Boulware. If you believe that we've said something that's false, come on the show and explain it and bring the facts with you. Come on this show. Matter of fact, Brian, we can do this here. I'm always in Atlanta. I was in Atlanta Monday for Chris Tucker's golf tournament. I was in Atlanta 2 weeks earlier for an entire week for NABJ. We're going to be in Georgia covering the election. You ain't got to come to us. We'll come to you. But the thing for me, Steve, is I don't want to hear anybody, former board member or current board member or former administration and current administration say, oh, we were never given an option to tell our side of the story. That's a lie. They were, and they have been, and the invitation is still open.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's disheartening to hear that this is still going on. From an alumni point of view, there's so many alumni that are divided because of this that we can't get focused on really moving in the same direction. We all want to save our university, but the only way we have to save our university is that we have to align under trust and the truth. And really what's being displayed now is basically in court is what we've been telling people. Our group, Falcons Unite, have been telling people for the last 10 years that this type of things were going on. We have records, we have documents to show this. And really and truly what they're seeing in court and what the Judge Warren is kind of laying out and reading is what has been provided, all of this time. Really and truly, never in history have I heard a judge admonish a board of trustees like he's admonished ours. And I say ours because they're still our board of trustees. But one thing he said that really it did something to my heart. It basically said St. Augustine's is too historic of a college, university. It is too important to the community of Raleigh and the state of North Carolina to be lost. And to have a board like this that is very unprofessional, they deserve better. And really and truly, it's disheartening. So I'm paraphrasing, but this is what Judge Warren said in court. And it touched my heart because I've never heard that type of language from, that bench being displayed out. But trust to believe, Roland, my grandmother always says, who just turned 95, a hit dog will holler. And that's what you hear now. These things just didn't happen. And a lot of people can think they can, kind of move forward and, nothing's nothing. Oh, I had nothing to do with that. But there's a cause and effect. And when you do certain things, it doesn't stop. And when the dominoes keep falling, it doesn't matter, oh, it didn't fall on my watch. No, you started it. And everything fell after that.
Well,
so, yeah.
Well, perfect example.
So,
we had perfect example. We had a former board member who sent us an email saying y'all showed my picture on your show, and I didn't have anything to do with this. Well, I have some questions. Were you on the board when these things started? What did you say? What did you do? What did you call out? Are there minutes of the meetings? Show me the evidence. Show me emails where you challenged Boulware or Perry or any other board member. Please, if someone says, hey, I was on the board and I tried, okay, show us. Show us. And what people have to understand, that, again, this is not, oh, my God, you're trying to go after somebody. No. I mean, here's a perfect example. Look at this here. Go full screen right here. Again, this is not me. This is not me. This is a story from IndieWeek.com. It's dated May 21st, 2025. Bankruptcy filing halts six-figure legal dispute between St. Augustine's University board chair and former trustee. Y'all, this is Chloe Courtney Bowl wrote this on May 21st, 2025. This is what it says right here. I'm going to read it. A 2-year legal dispute between St. Augustine's University board chair Brian Boulware and former trustee George Brooks reached an anticlimactic detente last week when Boulware's 3 companies declared bankruptcy, triggering an indefinite pause in the proceedings. The 2 men, both of Atlanta, have been entangled in litigation since 2022, when Boulware defaulted on a 6-figure business loan from Brooks. More recently, a judge found that Boulware used some of that loan, which he still hasn't repaid, for personal expenses, including the purchase of a Range Rover and payments to an SAU employee named Wanda Wagner. According to legal filings, Boulware, an entrepreneur, and Brooks, a UPS executive, got into business together in 2021 while they were both serving as trustees of St. Augustine's University. Brooks invested $600,000 across Boulware's 3 Georgia cigar businesses: Studio Cigars Corporation, Wise Ash Cigars 2 LLC, and BB Cigar Distributors Corp. Soon after, Boulware began defaulting on interest payments, and Brooks sued him and his companies to recoup the loan. Brooks resigned from SAU's board in 2024. After years of legal back and forth, a Georgia court ruled in Brooks' favor in January, ordering Boulware to pay back the original loan with interest. The judge found that Boulware had been, quote, abusing, unquote, his business bank accounts, quote, as a mere extension of his personal affairs, spending over $100,000 on hotels, meals, entertainment, the Range Rover, and the payments to Wagner. Now, Boulware's attorney said that, these were business expenses that were properly incurred. Again, this was a year ago. As for the disposition of this case, we've not been able to find this information, and we'll be reaching out to Boulware's attorney to get an update. Brian Boulware, again, you've been emailing our producer twice today. Answer the questions. But Steve, here's the problem right here. This is the problem. Brooks leaves the board in 2024. Boulware is still on the board at that particular time. This right here should raise a massive red flag where a board chair is getting a business loan from a board member and they're having a legal dispute that goes to court, but this person is the chair of a university and you have financial issues. This right here, again, this is not like, let me be real clear, this is not like Boulware was doing business with somebody else and there was no affiliation, no relationship to St. Augustine's. No, this was a business deal with a fellow board member. That's a red flag.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. I mean, but you have to look at the makeup of the board. Everybody that's on that current board, Boulware basically chose. Those are everybody that he put there. You know, it's been by him, his appointment. Remember, they self-govern themselves. Now, the only person that wasn't is Mr. Rodman. Mr. Rodman is appointed by the actual Episcopal Church. That's the only person that was not brought on. And then James Perry brought Brian on. So everybody that's pretty much on that board that is connected to that board had a connection to Brian prior to, or they knew of, or he appointed them, you know, to the board. So that's disheartening, really and truly. I mean, when you take a 150-page bylaw and you trim it down to only 25 pages, you've basically encapsulated yourself to be self-governed. And that's pretty much what happened here. And I'm just repeating what what was found out in our court proceedings. And I really wish that the judge would have took a better stance on the precedent, but she had to side with the statute. And that's that, we didn't have standing at that time, but it was not without merit. And really at this point, seeing what's occurring in bankruptcy and the embarrassment as an alumni, really and truly, I'm waiting for AG Jeff Jackson because the investigation is still ongoing. I'm just waiting to receive a call from him.
And this attorney general needs to step up. And I need people to understand. I didn't go to St. Aug. I ain't from North Carolina. I ain't got no dog in this hunt. But Steve, here's my fundamental problem. This generation, we are supposed to be caretakers of what the ancestors left us. We're not supposed to be undertakers.
No. And you're absolutely right. And as a person that goes on that campus every so often and cuts the grass, because for some odd reason, the Board of Trustees can't raise enough money to keep the grass cut. I personally come out of my pocket. A lot of people come out of their pocket. A lot of alumni volunteer. A lot of the D9 volunteers to come and clean their areas. But it's just walking on that campus. It's really bad. When I was a freshman coming on, the first thing that I felt was a rush, and it was almost like a gust of wind when it used to come on campus. And I never forget, I went and talked to one of my then professors, Dr. Frank Godfrey, and I said, Doc, what is that feeling you get? Because when we walk on the campus, it's just like it's something that, you know, grabs you and you feel, you know, you just, it's something, it's some kind of energy you feel. He said, well, remember, this school was founded by former slaves. What you're feeling is that welcome. They're welcoming you to campus. When I'm over there cleaning and doing stuff and trying to, you know, throw away the trash, I'm rarely feeling that. And it gets to a point sometime where it's difficult. It's truly difficult. And to see the vandalism that's occurring, to see that, you know, our archives have been vandalized and, you know, the buildings are still not secure. Our Roland alumni, we paid for really expensive cameras. We went to security. They asked us, you know, we asked them, what do you need to help? And they said, we'll be good if we can get some cameras. Roland, we went on a call 2 days later with alumni. We raised enough money to have cameras put all over and in the darker areas, have lightings. Do you know that this same board is blocking us from having those cameras put up? Well, while our campus is still being vandalized. And you know the first thing that's coming, and you and I both know, once your area is considered blighted, then this local government comes right in and they can do whatever they want to it. And we don't want that to happen. That's why we're
right.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't understand. This alumni, they are using their hard-earned money.
Yes.
Alumni, they want to save their school. I mean, listen, I've seen the stories. Bake drives, fish fries, fundraisers, paying off debt. My understanding that right now there are only 2 students enrolled.
Well, after the court case, there are 2 going now. Yeah.
See, this is what I need people to understand. And so my position is very simple. This is very simple. To Brian Boulware, to James Perry, to every single former board member and current board member, why are y'all so afraid to talk? Why are y'all so afraid to have a conversation? You know what? You don't have to sit down with me. Why are y'all afraid to talk to alumni? Why are y'all afraid to open the books? And I'm telling you right now, we're going to be reaching, we're going to be reaching out to pull up the current board. We're going to be reaching out. First of all, we're going to hit all of them again. And we're going to hit all of them and say, hey, who wants to come on? But Reverend Samuel Rodman, he was on the board a few years ago. He's still on the board. He was assigned. He's with the Episcopal Church. He needs to also be speaking up. And so I need any of these people right here. Why are they so afraid to talk? Why will they not be open and honest to the alumni of saying, hey, here's the deal. This is what we discovered. This is what we found. This is all of the stuff this is what we're trying to fix. And these are the steps that we've taken. If we can get y'all help with this, that's all you got to do. But it's all, Steve, as somebody who's been a journalist, who started when I was 14 years old. First, when people are afraid to be transparent and talk, and this is not like, oh, it's been 3 months, 6 months. This goes back several years. That tells you right there it's a problem. And not only that, listen, they still are facing this problem here, this lawsuit. Dr. Christine McPhail, who passed away earlier this year, she's filed lawsuit against 2 board members. She was fired in 2023. She's filed a charge of discrimination with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And the firm, this is the story from CBS17.com. The firm claimed that McPhail, as well as other women, faced a hostile work environment that included gender and race bias from the male-dominated St. Augustine's University Board of Trustees. In the newest filing, McPhail's attorneys accused two board members, Brian Boulware and James Perry, both of them who were board chairs, of performing their positions in a bad faith manner designed to create fear and intimidation amongst SAU employees, and based upon this abuse of individual power, the defendants unlawfully mistreated employees. That is a lawsuit. Again, McPhail passed away, but this is still standing. And so the last point here, Steve, and this is really the greatest problem. And this is the greatest problem. The university is supposed to be there to educate kids. The university is supposed to be there to provide an opportunity for black students or any other student. And when you don't have any students on campus, when you damn near going to lose your accreditation, when you owe millions of dollars, when you sign contracts and then you're getting sued, then you're not fulfilling the duties. And the job of a board of trustees, again, main jobs: fiduciary responsibility for the university, governance of the president, and raising money. And somebody has to explain to me how St. Aug went from doors open, students on campus, homecoming, graduations, to now being a desert.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And we as alumni, some of us know, a lot of us know, some don't want to accept the truth, what they've been seeing and what they've heard and what's being placed in front of them, the evidence. But you have to look at it, our university, for what it is. You can't have a university that's almost 160 years old go down in this manner, in this fast. It's depressing. I can say that, and it's embarrassing. Which is why I keep saying, AG Jeff Jackson, it's time. You can't sit back anymore and watch this university suffer. Alumni have suffered too long. A lot of us have paid the price for it, who've been in this fight. And we need you to act. We need that office to act. And I'm telling you, we have documents that really you need to see. And you have the case file, everything that's in there, and we have more. We have people that want to finally corroborate everything that's in that case file. So there's no more waiting. You have to help us save our university. We can rebuild, we can do that. We have community partners that are willing to help, who I've personally met with when I was in my capacity. They are there. We just have to get this board removed so we can put a temporary board in place to get our university moving back forward. It's there, but we need your help.
Steve Williams, I certainly appreciate you joining us and being on today's show. Certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Roland, thank you. Appreciate you. And we're going to keep fighting as much as we can. And we'll keep reporting back to you. But thank you. Thank you for your staff. Thank you for all you've done.
I certainly appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. I want people to understand something. And y'all know, we deal with facts. I am looking at it. This was an email that I received in 2022. And when you see this email, I'm going to show you shortly. The email, folks, let me do this here. So when you see this email, this is what it says. It says FY20 public institutions, FY21 public institutions, FY20 all institutions. This is COVID relief money. I'm going to hit FY20 all institutions. And I'm going to blow this up. So I'm going to scroll down here. And this is by state. And here we are in North Carolina. And what you will see here, I'm going to pull up to the top page so y'all can all see it. You see right there, North Carolina. Bennett College received $32.8 million in COVID relief money. Elizabeth City State University, you see how much they received. Well, first of all, that's a state institution. So when you look at the top here, so they got state funding and then they got federal funding, okay? So Fayetteville State, they're also state institutions. Johnson C. Smith, private, got $46 million. Livingstone College, private, got $60.3 million. North Carolina Central, A&T, public. Shaw University, private HBCU, got $44.1 million in COVID money. St. Aug got $34.9 million in COVID money. Here's the question. Where did it go? Where did it go to? What is the financial accounting? What was the board doing? How is the money being managed? Somebody has to give an answer how you go from a working institution to right now, parents are dropping off their children at colleges all across the country. In Raleigh, North Carolina, at St. Augustine University, pull a video up again. When we were there for the town hall, the campus was a ghost town. No, not that, guys. The video of the campus. This is what the campus looked like when we were there for the town hall. And you're going to see, and I actually walked the campus. No one was on the campus. And that's exactly what it's going to look like, what it looks like right now in this month. So again, these folks have some answers that they should be providing. And I'm going to say this again. Y'all keep that video rolling. We have invited for 2 years former board chair Brian Boulware, former chair James Perry, former board members, current board chair Sophia Gibson, former presidents, current president. We have invited all of them, and not a single person has been willing to talk. So I don't want to hear any board member or former board member or administrator or former administrator say, well, our side's not being told. We have provided opportunities for you to do so, but you've chosen to decline. And Brian Boulware, we can't email you at your cigar email because that email no longer exists. But you've emailed my producer twice today. You said in your email that you were slandered and false statements were made. Okay? I'm giving you an opportunity to come to this show to answer a series of questions that I have. And I will give you the opportunity to tell your story, because I look forward to hearing it. I'll be right back. All right, folks, let me get personal for a second. My mom had questions about her Medicare, so she called Chapter, a Medicare advisory company, and she texted me right after saying it's a great benefit. It was easy. A real person walked her through the whole thing, and now she understands better what's going on. But it's not just her. A woman in Yonkers wrote in saying the process was so simple, the enrollment was easy, and she was so glad she called. Then there's Marilyn, 90 years old, in Florida, living on Social Security. Her premium climbed every single year north of $400 a month for coverage she could barely afford anymore. So what does she do? She called Chapter. They found her the same top-tier coverage for hundreds of dollars less. 90 years old, and finally somebody in her corner. I hear stories like that again and again from our community. The Medicare system was not built to work for you. Too much fine print, too many plans. Yet Chapter's advisors are independent and honest, the only Medicare advisors that compare every plan nationwide. They're focused on one thing, what actually works for you. If you're already in the right plan, they'll tell you. No games. And people who switched with Chapter saved an average of $1,100 a year. All it takes is 20 minutes. You talk to a real person, and it's completely free help. So call Chapter at 724-264-8281, 724-264-8281. That's Chapter.
We're Maze, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Houston Congressman Al Green is trying to get Donald Trump, the twice impeached, criminally convicted felon-in-chief, out of office. Earlier this week, Green filed his 8th article of impeachment over Trump's aggressive immigration crackdown. Congressman Green joins me now. Congressman, listen, you're in the minority. Republicans control the House. Why don't you file this? Surely they're not going to support this.
Well, I think that we need to get Democrats to support us first. As you know, Democrats don't always support articles of impeachment. But these articles of impeachment are solid. They've been examined by a constitutional scholar, and they're really about a vicious, unaccountable paramilitary force that is acting as judge, jury, prosecutor, and executioner, and they're doing it with impunity. We cannot allow lives to be continually lost at the hands of these people. And the president supports it, he condones it, he's covering it up. And if this cover-up continues, more lives can be lost. So the articles of impeachment, in a sense, is putting people on notice that we're looking. But more importantly, it will give us an opportunity to go on the record. And I believe that every Democrat ought to vote for these articles of impeachment. I've heard Democrats say that the president has blood on his hands, that this is something that's cold-blooded. Well, if we don't do this, we don't impeach, and we allow this to be tabled with our helping Republicans, then if someone else happens to lose his life at the hands of these people, then we'll have blood on our hands. Every person who doesn't vote for this will have blood on his hands, her hands, if we have another life lost. So this is what we must do to take control of a president who is out of control.
But you have Democrats who say that this is a distraction, that they should be focusing on affordability, that this is not going to go anywhere, so therefore it's a waste of time. How do you respond?
We send bills over to the Senate quite regularly who go nowhere. This is not unusual. But we have affordability, and affordability is important because affordability is about life. It's about the necessities of life, food, clothing, shelter, about life and the necessities. Accountability is also important. It's also about life, about the lives of people who are being lost to a president who is condoning and supporting what's happening and then covering it up such that if ever there is a crime filed and brought to court, then it would be in a federal court, and then he can pardon these people the same way he pardoned over 1,000 people when he came back into office. First day, those people were participating in the insurrection at the Capitol, trying to keep Trump in office, prevent President Biden, who became president, he was vice president then, prevent him from taking office. So we have a duty to do this. And there's nothing in the Constitution that says wait. There's nothing in the Constitution that says if a president is committing impeachable offenses, that you don't impeach until you are sure that you can get a vote in the Senate. My God, if that were the case, then other presidents who've been impeached wouldn't have been impeached. People understand that the Senate is not always going to act, but it's the House that has a responsibility to impeach. The Senate has a responsibility to convict. And I do believe that this president does not desire to be impeached again. And I do believe that he will be found guilty in the court of public opinion, so that the next person who succeeds him, who may be of his ilk, will understand that he cannot do this with impunity.
Well, that is certainly the case. Well, Congressman Green, let's see what happens. We'll see if Democrats do get on board behind your articles of impeachment. We sure appreciate it, Fred. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Folks, earlier today I talked with Congresswoman Maxine Waters, and we had a conversation discussing what's important in this election, the importance of fundraising, but also we talked about what people need to understand the role of members of Congress, especially Black caucus members, and how they do impact the lives of African Americans every single day. Here is that conversation. Congresswoman Waters, glad to have you back on the show. Let's get right into it. One of the things that is really driving me crazy is I'm seeing a lot of Democrats, progressives, liberals, DSA, all these people having what I call intra-party fights. And what I keep saying is Democrats don't control the House, don't control the Senate, don't control the White House. You got Republicans who are circling the wagons. If Democrats want to get power, they have to win. That means if you're wasting time on intra-party fights, all the primaries are over, then you're putting the opportunity to get power in jeopardy. This is time to buckle up, circle the wagons, win in November, and then you can battle it out over leadership after the election. But right now, you got to win something in November.
Well, I think you have just articulated what most of us feel. Most of us feel that it's so important to keep our caucus together, to keep the Democratic Party together, to raise money, to work hard, to win our primaries. And that's what most of us are trying to do. It's hard sometimes to control individuals, but I do believe that it can be done. And we have to work hard at it. Some of the people who are running do not really maybe understand how it all works, need to have an individual visit and conversation with our leadership about how things work and what perhaps they'll be able to do. Need to start that kind of talk now so that we'll be ready to go very quickly when we take back the House, which I certainly intend that we do, and certainly our leadership intends that we do. We're doing real good, but I would not get so worried about whether or not we are progressive, whether or not we are democratic socialists, or whether or not we are marginal or more whatever. I think we should not get over concerned about that and not buy into what some of the media is trying to do, because some of the media, mostly the white media, are interested in a fight in order to get their ratings up.
And one of the things that, again, looking at this from the ground and from 30,000 feet, and that is this here. I said this on my show last night. You cannot count votes when ain't nobody voted. So I don't care what a poll says. I don't care what any of that stuff says. You got to be focused on what's in front of you. That is, to your point, you got to be raising money. You got to be putting that money on the ground. It can't be fixated on television ads. It has to be talking to people, enlightening them, telling them what's going on, laying out, connecting the dots, but also laying out what Democrats will do if they regain power. And what I keep saying is, if Democrats win the House in November, that means that Democrats will be the ones in control when the 2028 election has to be certified. There's a reason Republicans desperately want to hold on to the House, and it ain't just about passing bills. It's also about that 2028 election certification.
Absolutely. Again, you hit it right on the head. But let me assure you that we're raising money. We're working hard and we're winning elections. We're really doing a good job. I know a lot of people are so concerned about the discussion about age, the discussion about democratic socialists, et cetera, et cetera. But I want to tell you, I think we're more on the right track than not. I do know that certain press operations like the idea of talking about democratic socialists. You can't,
Right.
You can't, get all and everybody, each one of the people running, to understand how feeding into that does not help us. But most do. And we have a few who have said some things that are quite different than what the party is saying and what we're trying to do. But one of the things I'm getting from all over the country as I travel around is basically what you said. And what are you guys going to do? What are you talking about now so that people will say, yeah, I know all of that about Trump. I know he's no good. I know he's angry. I know he's cruel. I know he's a crook. But what are y'all going to do? And that's where they want us to go. They want us to talk about, what do you mean when you talk about an affordability crisis? How are you going to get the gasoline prices down? What are you going to do about this war in Iran? I mean, that's what I'm hearing on the ground. And I think we need to do more of that.
It's a perfect example. So Florida Representative Angie Nixon, she wins the Democratic primary. All of the conventional wisdom, the centrists, the consultant class. Oh, Alex Vindman, perfect candidate, military man. He was part of the resistance. He raised $16, $17 million. He got all the endorsements. She crushed him. And when you study the numbers, Angie Nixon brought out people who were disaffected, who had been checking out of elections. You look on the gubernatorial side, David Jolly, former Republican, he's brought out the traditional Democrats. This is what I've said. Jolly needs Nixon voters for him to become governor. Nixon needs Jolly voters, her becoming United States Senator. It's dumb to think you're going to win and not cross-pollinate. And I would say it is insane for any Democrat, black, white, Latino, Asian American, Native American, to say, well, we'll be wasting our money in Florida in the race of Angie Nixon. No, you got to rebuild Florida. You got to rebuild the voting rolls. You got to rebuild the infrastructure. If you keep writing states off, you're never going to have a shot. The 2026 race with Nixon for Senate and Jolly for governor sets up 2028. It's dumb to write the state off because you disagree and you think Nixon is too liberal.
Well, let me say this. Many of the decisions that are made about how many districts you can cover has to do with money. It has to do with where do you put the money for the best opportunity. We have been expanding all of the districts that we're going to. We have been focusing more on the red to blue, and we've been raising more money, and we are absolutely believe that we cannot be confined to just those areas that we think are easy to win. And I want you to know that we really are working in that way. Now, when you get someone that rolls out and starts talking about what we're not going to do, my question is, and I'm raising it, is who told you? Who gave you the authority to say that? Because what happens is, as the money comes in and the resources come in, you keep expanding. And we go red to blue every time we raise more money.
And when we talk about raising money, Congresswoman, and I said this last night, if there is any moment where the Congressional Black Caucus should be swinging a big bat, it is right now against every Democratic group. DNC, DGA, DCCC, DSCC, the legislative people, House majority, Senate majority PAC. because I'm sick and tired, Congresswoman, of elections coming around and hearing black politicians say, oh, we got to keep begging for money. Democrats, this is what I say, got to spend 4 times as much time and 4 times as much money trying to reach black folks today than they used to. And this is, and my deal is, let's not wait till October. This is where it should be. I dare say, and if the CBC's already done it, please let me know. Say, no, we calling all y'all into one big meeting and look at you dead in your eye and say, if you are not putting that money on the ground, if you're not investing in black communities, y'all ain't gonna win. These white Democratic, largely white male consultants who keep getting rich off these races, they better understand, if you don't invest in black folks, you are going to lose. Well, let me just say that, we continue to grow the number of blacks that are being elected. We continue to do that. And we have to go after the money. And some of the sources that you have just talked about, certainly the DCCC is on the front line to make sure that we get the money into the campaigns, that we tell them that we want to put that money in if there's a black candidate there, so that we can continue to increase the numbers. But in addition to the DCCC, all of those people that are the beneficiaries of the work that we do, many of them are white, many of them are brown, many of them are rural, what have you. We have to say to them, we're the ones who are making sure that we're representing you and that we're fighting for Social Security, and we're fighting for housing, and we're fighting for Medicare, and on and on and on. We've got to do a lot of education. Now, let me tell you something. Also, we raise money individually, not only for our own campaigns, but we have a dues operation that we all have to do to go out. I am assessed $650,000 in addition to whatever I have to do. And when I raise money, I can't take it from anybody who's, a Wall Street person who undermines us and all about payday loans and all about how to be sophisticated and ripping off folks. You can't take some of that money, because if you do, you're selling out, and you're selling out. So we got to start coming to our people. Our rich black people could help us. We don't get a lot of money from those areas. We have a few who help us, but we really got to do a better job. And not only with big amounts of money, but with small amounts of money. The $5 and the $10 and the $20 on the internet. The Black caucus members have got to be able to attract, so that we are raising money from all of the sources that we talk about and that you have alluded to. So money raising is a responsibility for us to put pressure on, like you have said. It is a responsibility for us to create new sources, new resources. It's a responsibility for us. I tell some of the people who want me to, travel around the country and be recognized. We want to recognize you. We want to tell you how wonderful you are. I said, no, raise some money. You know what I'm saying? Don't give me another plaque. I mean, I don't care if you can't raise $1,000. If you want me to fly out to New York, or you want me to go down to Alabama or someplace, I'm willing to do that, but I don't need to be praised. I don't need to get another certificate. I need the people there to say, well, we only got 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, whatever it is. And we want to help the Black Caucus and the Democratic Party to have the resources that they need in order to take this country back. And that's a message I'm trying to send out there too. And you're right. Get the resources from the places in the organized Democratic Party that we should be getting. Well, and what I've been saying, Congresswoman, hey, if you're African American and you got issues with the Democratic Party, fine. Give that money to Black Voters Matter. Give that money to Bishop Barber's Repairs of the Breach and the Poor People's Campaign. Give it to our groups that we know are going to be on the ground, who are going to be paying door knockers, who are going to be paying people in the field, because you can't just organize and mobilize on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You need that. But you also got to be touching people. You got to be literally knocking on their door saying, hey, I have the stats here. You didn't vote in the last midterm election. We need your election turnout. Because, Congresswoman, the number that I've been using is that we need, at a minimum, where we have black folks, 70% turnout. Because when we are turning out at 52, 55, 59, we're losing thousands of votes on the couch. And that's the difference in many of these races between winning and losing. Donald Trump and the Republicans control the House right now because of a collective total of 7,000 votes. They won those seats to get to 218 with 7,000 votes. I need our folk to understand, you can't be yelling tangibles no vote when you can't get any tangibles if the person you want never wins. You need them to win to get something delivered to your community.
Well, you talk about organizing, and we absolutely need more people on the ground. It is a ground game, just as you have alluded to. And, you know, in some of the better off communities, they have a lot of volunteers. They have women that don't work. They have students who on their break, they don't need to have a job. They don't need to get money. And they are volunteering. We have to almost pay everybody we put on the ground to so-called volunteer. If we want to get, you know, in some of our communities, people knocking on doors, we got to pay them. We got to have money to do that with. We don't have a lot of people who can afford to volunteer. They need to work. They need to earn money so they can put food on the table. These are the kinds of things that we have to deal with. I think we can do a better job of it because that money that we're talking about raising has to go to that ground operation. And we have to do it as individuals, and the party and the DCCC got to do it because, like you said, it doesn't mean anything if you can't win and you can't change the direction of this country. We are so upset about what is happening with diversity, equity, and inclusion. The president and the White House sent a letter to every nonprofit in the country saying, if you have anything that looks like diversity, equity, and inclusion, you're going to lose everything. And it goes on and on and on. I mean, in addition to this public policy and the seriousness of public policy, the president is just so out of it, so crazy, that he's spending time taking a black man who is named on a Navy ship because of what he did, because of the sacrifice that he made. A hero name, he wants his name off so that he can put his own name in. And I tell you, it is not just about the public policy that we have to be all about, but all of this other crazy stuff that he's doing, going into our national parks and taking out information that has anything to do with our history and slavery, what he's trying to do at the Smithsonian and all of these places to determine what is good and what is not, what is too black and what is too slavery related, et cetera, et cetera. We've got to change America. We've got to take America in another direction. And we can only do it with the numbers and the power that you keep talking about. And I think some of us get it. We've got to get more people who get it. And if there's one thing that, you know, I will say that won't be liked is, you know, I'm tired of cocktail parties. I'm tired of, you know, going to chat. I want people to be serious about raising money and not about telling us how great we are. I want to raise that money, and I don't care what amounts it is, little or big. And I think when we do some of that, we will see that those small dollar amounts really count when they add up.
Yep. Last question for you, Congresswoman.
Yes.
When the Democrats had the majority, you were the chair of the House Financial Services Committee. And I deal with this all the time. I deal with these people and they say, Roland, them Black Caucus members, they don't do nothing. I ain't seen them do nothing. Just explain just 2 or 3 things that people do not understand, that if the Democrats take over the House, and you are over the House Financial Services Committee. Just share 2 or 3 things that directly impacted Black people with you holding that gavel, sitting in that chair.
There are a number of things. First of all, we have the responsibility for all of Wall Street. We have the responsibility for the agencies of government with financial services, whether we're talking about the Treasury, or whether we're talking the FDIC, whether we're talking about the SEC, whether we're talking about the feds. And we're working every day as the Republicans are trying to disengage everything that we have done historically and get rid of the rules that have held us in good stead that we have fought for. And a lot of our work is stopping them from being able to undo the rules that have protected people of color. When we talk about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, it was none before we had the Dodd-Frank bill that we put in, and then we were able to deal with payday loans that are ripping people off. People had somewhere to call to talk about fraud and talk about how they got ripped off. And we have returned billions of dollars to people who have been taken advantage of. When we talk about housing, which is in my committee, and HUD, we have fought with HUD, and we're fighting with them now about Section 8. Section 8 is so important to rental opportunities for people who don't have enough money for these high rental costs. It goes on and on and on. Section 8, all of the money that's available through ways that people can apply for grants that most people don't understand how they got them. They don't know what we do. We've got to educate people about what we are doing every day that is directed toward the least of these, and Black people in particular.
And in the banks, when it comes to redlining, they got to come through your committee. If we're talking about housing appraisals and how that comes through your committee. All this stuff impacts Black people. Money that goes to community development, CDFIs.
That's very important. That CDFI money, we created that, and we put more money in it during COVID when the big boys ripped it off and put their people into the programs and had to back out of them. We raised more money, me and Lydia Velasquez, and made sure it got to our Black banks and our credit unions so that they didn't have to close down. But we've got to educate people. And I talk to people now who are supposed to be in business and in the Black Chamber of Commerce, and they don't know what the CDFI is, as much work as we've put into it.
And the last point here, by you being even in the minority, the ranking committee, you can change one line in a bill. You could insert one thing into a bill that can have significant impact on people. That's the thing I'm constantly trying to teach people, Congresswoman Waters. Y'all yell, holler, and scream, man, I don't see what they doing. Because it's a lot of stuff that you will never see because it don't make the news, but it actually impacts our communities. Black farmers. I mean, House Financial Services Committee deals with the money. America is a $30 trillion gross domestic product. And you're dealing with the money.
We're dealing with the money, and I created the first roundtable on Black farmers that were being, ripped off with their applications thrown in the wastebasket somewhere. And we're fighting out front, and we're fighting in the back room. And we are representing in ways that are helping people out in ways that they don't even understand. And I wish that a lot more could be done in our educational opportunities with our schools to help people teach how the government works and what it means to vote and what democracy is all about, and watching the members that they elect and the members that they don't elect, and learn the difference between those who are advocates for the people and those who are not, those who are there to just enrich themselves. And a lot of work has to be done. I recognize that. But let me tell you, for the most part, the Black caucus is doing an awful lot. And when the new people come in, we're going to do everything that we can to empower them and to teach them and to work with them so they can expand the work that we are doing. And we want them not only in the House, in the committees, and on the floor, we want them in the communities, in the weekends, and on days that we're not there. I want them there, going into all of the different meetings. I want all of the young people who meet for whatever they're meeting for to get an opportunity to know who the elected officials are. Still, many of our people don't know who their elected official is. They know some of us, but they don't know most of us.
Well, I'm doing all I can to try to educate people so they can understand how this all works. And I appreciate you always taking time to come on our show. Listen, Congresswoman, I've said this to the last 6, 7 CBC chairs. I will put a CBC member on the show every day, every weekday of every month. And I don't care what they want to talk about, but they got to be willing to come on and talk about it because, listen, MS Now, CNN, ABC, NBC, Fox News, they ain't covering our stuff, and we got to be able to be talking to our people, educating them, and supporting Black-owned media.
You've told us that over and over again. That's why I try to get here as often as I can, because you've told us that we're welcome, that you will cover us, that we need to, get more information out. And of course, one of the things that I need to do, and we started this, I think I'll be able to accomplish it, is to get all you and the others in front of the entire Black caucus so that you can talk about what you're offering and what we can do, and spend some time there helping to educate the importance of utilizing what you're offering.
Yeah, I'm ready. Just let me know. I appreciate it. You have a great weekend.
Thank you so very much. I enjoy being with you.
Thanks a bunch. Folks, when we come back, we will remember the plaintiff in a massive lawsuit that led to a big settlement for Black farmers. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. You want to contribute via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. At QR codes for credit cards as well. If you're listening, go to blackstarnetwork.com for ways to give. Checks and money order, make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. PayPal, R. Martin Unfiltered. Venmo, RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back. All right, folks, let me get personal for a second. My mom had questions about her Medicare, so she called Chapter, a Medicare advisory company, and she texted me right after saying it's a great benefit. It was easy. A real person walked her through the whole thing, and now she understands better what's going on. But it's not just her. A woman in Yonkers wrote in saying the process was so simple, the enrollment was easy, and she was so glad she called. Then there's Marilyn, 90 years old, in Florida, living on Social Security. Her premium climbed every single year north of $400 a month for coverage she could barely afford anymore. So what does she do? She called Chapter. They found her the same top-tier coverage for hundreds of dollars less. 90 years old, and finally somebody in her corner. I hear stories like that again and again from our community. The Medicare system was not built to work for you. Too much fine print, too many plans. Yet Chapter's advisors are independent and honest, the only Medicare advisors that compare every plan nationwide. They're focused on one thing, what actually works for you. If you're already in the right plan, they'll tell you. No games, and people who switched with Chapter saved an average of $1,100 a year. All it takes is 20 minutes. You talk to a real person, and it's completely free help. So call Chapter at 724-264-8281, 724-264-8281. That's Chapter.
You're watching Martin Unfiltered.
The man who was the face of the 1997 lawsuit against then Secretary of Agriculture Dan Glickman has passed away. Timothy Pickford claimed the USDA treated Black farmers unfairly when deciding to allocate price support loans, disaster payments, farm ownership loans, and operating loans, and that the USDA had failed to process subsequent complaints about racial discrimination. Eventually, 400 additional African-American farmer plaintiffs joined the lawsuit. Pickford's lawsuit resulted in the 1999 settlement, which created ways for farmers to be compensated for discrimination. John Boyd is president of the National Black Farmers Association. John, glad to have you here. Just let folks know really how important Timothy Pickford was to this country and to African Americans.
Yes. Well, Tim was a good, strong leader, a good friend, and Roland, he tried hard, man. And I first met him at the Million Man March, organizing black farmers to go to the Million Man March in 1995. We became friends, and we were already suing the USDA and different state federal courts. And we had just lost in Texas, we had lost in Virginia. And Tim said, hey, boy, let's try in D.C., man, and let's see can we win there. And if we lost there, we were rolling. My last stop was going to be California. So we filed in Washington, D.C. with the attorney by the name of Alexander Pires, who took the case. And before then, we had Doug Wilder. We had all these attorneys that didn't stay aboard Roland because we didn't have any money to pay them. So that's how Alexander Pires got the case. So we went to Al Pires, he filed it. Tim Pickford was the main plaintiff of the first black farmers case in 1997. And Roland, I can't help to say, you're sitting there talking to Maxine Waters, the very person when we got stuck in court with Judge Friedman, who heard that case. He was the only federal judge that heard the case for the black farmers. And all of our cases was over 2 years long. So it was 10 years from the 80s to the 90s before we even got to get a federal judge to actually hear this case. And our statute of limitations expired on all of our cases, all of the main plaintiffs. And Maxine Waters, I've spent 3 days at her house educating her about the issue. And she held the first full Congressional Black Caucus hearing. And then after that hearing, she introduced legislation to lift the statute of limitations, not just for black farmers, but for Hispanic farmers, Native American farmers, and women farmers. And that's how we were able to move forward in federal court. And she also helped me and Ben Johnson, who was the White House appointed person for Bill Clinton, to enter to the settlement, the historic settlement that Tim Pickford was the main plaintiff. So I'd like to express my sincere condolences to his family, his wife, his 2 sons. I know that they're grown men now, and this was a very, very long time. Tim used to stay at my house, Roland, when we first began to organize, and we had a historic march on December 12th, 1996. That really was the first national attention that we were able to get. And many people don't know this, Roland. Before the 1990s, we were facing extinction the same way we are now. And it was almost taboo to even read the word black farmers in the press. So we didn't get any real press until the 1990s, but we had been filing complaints in federal courts since the 80s. So people just thought the cases just came out of nowhere. We had already been filing. We had lost in every single court. And the only judge that heard this case was Judge Friedman, and Timothy Pickford was the main plaintiff of that complaint.
This is from Brandeis University. They said just over 20 years ago, black farmers sought legal justice in a class action lawsuit against the USDA for racial discrimination in its farm and credit services. After a national organizing campaign, 2 class action lawsuits, and an act of Congress, just over 30,000 farmers received settlement funds for the discrimination they faced, mostly in increments of $50,000 per farmer. This is what I think is so important right here, John. At the time, Pickford v. Glickman was the largest civil rights settlement in the history of the United States, and it was only surpassed by Keep Siegel versus Vilsack, which came from Native American farmers, but that was as a result of the work of black farmers. And so, again, Timothy Pickford, a lot of folk won't know his name, but for that to be the largest civil rights settlement in American history, that is huge.
Yeah, and Roland, is underscore that many Black Americans don't know the story of the Black farmers. And, we paved the way for Native American farmers, the Keepsiger case, the women's case, the Love case, the Hispanic case, the Garcia case. All of those cases was filed by Alexander Paris, the same attorney, and we also pressed the Clinton administration, and then those cases weren't finalized, Roland, many people don't know this, until Barack Obama was president. That's when we got those other 80,000 Black farmers came after the we call them late filers case. And it took me another decade in Congress to get that bill. And the person who sponsored that bill was Barack Obama as a senator. When he was a senator, and then when he became president, he signed an additional $1 billion. The Claims Remedy Act of 2010 was signed by Barack Obama that paid Black farmers, Native Americans, women, and Hispanic farmers. So Barack Obama doesn't get enough credit for helping minorities either, and it's something that many people didn't know. But again, Roland, I want to express my sincere condolences to Timothy Pigford's family. I believe he lived in Riverwood, North Carolina, which is the eastern part of North Carolina, next to Washington, North Carolina, if anybody knows what that area is. And just a humble brother. He didn't like crowds. He didn't like a lot of people. He didn't like public speaking. But he was a good telephone one-on-one person. And he'll talk to you for hours on the telephone. And we strategized in my house and many, many nights in hotel rooms and many years. So my heart goes out to Tim and his family. A very, very solid brother that gave his life to justice and trying to do the right thing for his people.
Indeed. John Boyd, we certainly appreciate it for joining us to remember legacy.
And that piece you did there with Maxine Waters, that's why people need to watch this show, man, because nobody would have known that Maxine Waters was the sponsor of the statute of limitations that lifted the cases for Black farmers that allowed us to move forward in federal court when Judge Friedman was getting ready to kick us out. So support Maxine Waters, a marvelous leader, and she was the chair at that time of the Congressional Black Caucus. And like you said, she chairs, if the Democrats win again, she'll chair a very important that banking committee, man, that would put some pressure on these banks to lend Black people money and all of that stuff. So Roland, thank you for what you're doing. This is the Kick Behind show that people need to be watching every night. Thank you for having me.
John, I certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot, folks. Today in the nation's capital, Reverend Al Sharpton led the March on Washington commemoration. Folks joined him from around the country. A number of speakers were there as well. The focus is on voting rights. It took place on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Then, of course, they walked over to the MLK Memorial. It was in 1963 where the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom took place in the exact same spot. That's where Dr. King, of course, delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech. Here is some of what today's speakers had to say.
63 years later, we stand on the historic ground, not just to remember the dream, but to finish the assignment. They say young people are not engaged. Well, look around. Young people and students from all across this nation answered the call and organized to be here today. Clap yourselves up, young people. We understand what is at stake because this is our future. Esther in the Bible was told, "Who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" Well, this is our time. We stand on the shoulders of Dr. Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King, Dorothy Height, Shirley Chisholm, Reverend Jesse Lewis and Jacqueline Jackson, Congressman John Lewis, Reverend William Augustus Jones, Hazel Dukes, Wyatt T. Walker, Attorney Michael Hardy, our leader Reverend Al Sharpton, and so many others who carried this movement before us. And we remember young organizers like our own Ousmane Diallo, who stood on this stage with us in 2023, but he is no longer here today. They did their part. Now the assignment is ours.
63 years ago, people convened on this mall. They were fighting for jobs, justice, and dignity. We stand here 63 years later with over 300,000 Black women who have lost their jobs. We stand here 63 years later, with a Supreme Court that lacked the ability to see justice. We stand here 63 years later with people who live in the White House and in Congress that would have us think that it was illegal to be black. But we stand here today recognizing, as many of those who came 63 years later, that the march is only the gathering point for the work, and that we must leave here not celebrating this moment, but leave here energized and inspired to turn out the vote in November.
My father, the Reverend Jesse L. Jackson Sr., committed his life to giving hope to the disenfranchised. He said a great society is measured by how we treat our children in the dawn of life, our elderly in the sunset of life, our sick, poor, and disadvantaged in the sunset and shadows of life. He said that hunger hurts no matter your race, that every child deserves a fair chance, and that when we go forward by hope and not backward by fear, when we reach boldly for coalition based on common ground, when the playing field is even and the rules are very clear, we win. To the over 50 voices who spoke here before me, representing Haitians and immigrants and Jews and Greeks, labor, business, faith, fraternities, sororities, LGBTQ, Latinos, Asian American, and students, to those kids born out of wedlock and raised by their grandma, to those students who got accepted into college but can't afford tuition. He said, you may not have money, but you have dignity.
Because today, our generation is facing affordable crisis. We are earning degrees while questioning whether we can afford housing, groceries, healthcare, and a future with economic mobility. To many young people, we are struggling to find opportunities to allow them not just to survive, but to live. And we cannot ignore the power connected to our vote and our voices. Because they fought for our right to vote when their voting costed them their jobs, their safety, and sometimes even their lives. They fought for education when they were told that they did not deserve it. They fought for the representation when the country refused to see them, hear them, or make room for them. And our ancestors also fought to access this ballot. We cannot become the generation that take it for granted. Again, young people, we cannot be the generation that takes it for granted.
Wickedness in high places, but with not distress, because our community knows how to make a way out of no way. We're facing a crossroads right now here in the United States of America. The question is, which direction will we choose? We want to move America forward. The extremists are trying to turn back the clock. We're working hard to bring people together. The extremists are tearing the country apart. We believe in truth and reconciliation. The extremists want to erase our history, but black history is American history. Our story will never be erased. And so we come today in the spirit of Frederick Douglass. We come today in the spirit of Sojourner Truth. We come today in the spirit of Jackie Robinson. We come today in the spirit of Rosa Parks. We come today in the spirit of Martin Luther King Jr. We come today in the spirit of Muhammad Ali. We come today in the spirit of Fannie Lou Hamer. We come today in the spirit of Adam Clayton Powell Jr. We come today in the spirit of Shirley Chisholm, and we come today in the spirit of the great John Lewis, because it's time for us to get into some good trouble.
Today, we are here to defend the vote. So what does defend the vote mean? Defending the vote means voting rights for all. Repeat after me. Voting rights for all. Justice for all. No unjust wars. Defending the vote means liberation. Say liberation. Defending the vote means public education for all. Defending the vote means workers' rights, women's rights, LGBTQ rights. Defending the vote means diversity, equity, inclusion for all. And lastly, I just stopped by to tell the racist white nationalists, we built this country. We will not be erased. We ain't going nowhere. God is on our side. Power of the ballot. Say it with me. Power of the ballot. Say it with the ballot. Power of the ballot. Power of the ballot. We will remember in November who was with us and who was against us. Power to the people.
The right to vote is about more than a ballot. It's about whether we believe that every person should have a voice in our democracy, and I do. It's about whether we believe our fellow citizens deserve the dignity of being heard, and I do. It's about whether we believe that we can create change when we unite our voices, and I do. And it's about whether we believe that our votes matter, and I know we all do.
And my generation has to decide what that chapter will say. Because we are not just going to college to prepare for careers. We are coming of age at a moment when we have to prepare for history. Get ready. My grandfather was 34 years old when he stood at the Lincoln Memorial in 1963 and told America about his dream. I never met him. I never met my grandmother, Coretta Scott King, but I know something they both understood. A dream without work is just a wish. The March on Washington wasn't just one speech. It wasn't just one man, and it certainly just wasn't a day. It was thousands and thousands of ordinary people deciding to do something extraordinary together. People rode buses through the night. People missed work. People risked their jobs. People risked their safety, and some risked their lives. They came because they understood something we still need to understand today. Freedom is not a spectator sport.
Today, we have the opportunity to know history because the people that do not remember it are doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past. Unfortunately, we are in the midst of a disgraceful attempt by some politicians to return our nation to the days of unchecked racism, murder, selfishness, and greed. On March 31st, 1968, my father, Martin Luther King Jr., delivered his final sermon at the Washington National Cathedral entitled Remaining Awake Through a Great Revolution. For those of you who are not familiar with that story, it's about a man named Rip Van Winkle who fell asleep for 20 years and didn't recognize what had transpired during his nap. In that message, Dad stated, the real tragedy of the tale wasn't that Rip slept for 20 years. The tragedy was that he missed the opportunity to affect change in his community during a major transition from King George to President George Washington. Well, it's now 2026, and we have dictator wannabes who try to minimize, with a silly focus on semantics, the vital importance of our being aware or awake.
All right, folks. Listen, deadlines are coming up beginning next week. We're going to be sharing those with you when it comes to what's happening with the vote. We debuted our new show today. We're going to go ahead and show it to you right now. No Translation with Joe Johnson. We're focused on black men. It's really about speaking to their issues and what do they care about. And so we want to go ahead and show it to you. I'm going to see you guys on Monday. And so you have a great weekend. But right now, let's check out our newest show on the Black Star Network, No Translation with Jeff Johnson.
What's up, family? I'm Jeff Johnson, and this is No Translation. Now, before we get into this first episode, I gotta say thank you to Roland Martin and the Black Star family for giving us a place to call this show home. I'm excited about what this means for us and more excited about bringing this content to you. Now, what is No Translation? For the last 20 years, I've been working with and for Black men in a multitude of ways, and I remain committed to serving our people by serving our brothers. I realize that most polling mechanisms seldom include Black people, let alone Black men. And whether we as Black men are at our best or our worst, very few people understand why we do the things that we do. There's a lot of reasons for that, and I'm all for accountability, but I want to make sure that we have understanding in the process. I want us to see the complexity of who Black men are. I want us to acknowledge that there's no one model or image of Black masculinity, and the mosaic and beauty of our brothers across socioeconomic status, education, geography, nationality, identity, and more is nuanced and complex. I want us to understand that while we are often driven by money, our jobs, and our trauma, we are often moved by our joy, our curiosity, our love. Those are things that impact our politics. But even more than that, we're Black before we're Democrats or Republicans, liberals, conservatives, or independents. Now, I need you to know I'm not anti-party, but I am anti-party before us. And who is us? Anyone committed to our freedom, our growth, and our thriving. We may not agree on how we get to our destination, but if we can agree on some of the goals and the values which move us, maybe we can be more aligned than we are divided. Who's going to be on this show? I'm not going to focus on the traditional political talking heads, elected officials, or intellectuals. You're going to see some of them every now and again. But I want to see brothers who go to work every day, who raise their children, who serve in churches, who serve in the community, who wake up every day trying to be their best. We want brothers on this show who are willing to talk about their lives, not just somebody else's talking points, their needs, not somebody else who's telling them who to blame, and their fears that come from their heart and from their bloodline, and how that connects to how they see politics. For that to happen, I also need you. So let me know, brothers, I should have on. Please know we're not going to be able to get everybody on the show, but with your help, we will make sure we bring voices to these conversations that we would have otherwise not known existed. Now, I hope that we can increase understanding even where there's disagreement. I hope that we can expand this idea of shared destiny. And I hope we can advance what it means to be community. Listen, if we can't thrive, then what is the point? And we cannot do that without each other. If we can be intentional about community, hopefully we can be intentional about power. That is what this show is about. And I am so thankful that you are here with me to see how we make this happen. Welcome to No Translation. So y'all, every week on this show, we're going to do a segment called Beyond the Numbers. And here's why I'm calling it that. Because the numbers are where we start, but they are definitely not where we finish. I'm excited because this segment is going to be driven by the work of my brother, Terrence Woodbury, and his team at Hit Strategies. And I want you to know why. There's a lot of research out there. Well, maybe not a lot, but there's research out there about Black folks. Most of it treats us like a category, one line on somebody's crosstab. What Terrence and his team are doing, in my opinion, is more comprehensive than anybody else in the country when it comes to actually focusing on Black men, not as an afterthought, but as the subject. So they're going to be an ongoing partner on this show. Every week, they're going to hand us something, and we're going to look at it together. And my hope is that we can bring Terrence on to break down some of those numbers in the work. And if not, we're going to do that together. So let's look at what they have sent us. First thing, between 2020 and 2024, turnout in this country dropped. And the drop was not spread evenly. It was concentrated among voters of color. About 1.5 million fewer Black voters showed up in 2024 than 2020. Sit with that for a second. That is a swing. And when you look at where support for the Democratic nominee has fallen off the most since 2012, it's not even close. It's young men of color by far. Now, a lot of people have looked into that and told one story. Black men are out. I want to suggest something different, y'all. I want to ask a different question. And it's the question this whole show is based on. Did they leave Or did they stop being engaged, not being asked? Because here's the thing, this survey, 77% of young Black men said that they're likely to vote in 2026 midterms. For 2028, 81%. That's not a group that's checked out. That is not apathy. But what is it? I think we should look at what's underneath. Among young Black men in this study, 55% call themselves Democrat, 9% call themselves Republicans, and there are leaners on both sides of that. Now, when asked what kind of economic vision these young men wanted, young Black men were the most likely group in the whole study to say that they'd back a candidate moving towards socialism, 57 to 41%, more than white men, more than Latino men. So here's what I want you to hold. This is one group of men with wide range of political thinking inside of it. Big Democrat majority, a real conservative minority, and an economic politics further left than almost anybody, all in the same room. That is not a block. That's a spectrum. And anybody trying to move Black men, especially young Black men, who's working off one script is going to miss most of us and miss us by a lot. As we think about men 18 to 44, that's where I think it's really important. I mean, if you're trying to mobilize us, Black men, what their top issues are, and here's what keeps coming back. Obviously, jobs, the economy, inflation, taxes. Those are the top three. It's money. It's providing. These are the things that we get our affirmation from. They're the things that make us men in our own minds, in our community. And when you ask young Black men how they define success for themselves across every ideology, left, right, everywhere in between, the same thing comes back to the top. Providing for family, being financially independent, having a job that means something, emotional stability. So as I think about this, and here's the finding I put on a billboard. In this research across every issue they tested, there was not one issue that these young men saw elected Democrats leading the conversation on. Not one. So if you're in the business of mobilizing Black men, that's your assignment. It's not a turnout problem. It's a listening problem. And I'm not talking about Black men doing the listening. I'm talking about everybody else. These are the numbers we're going to keep coming back to. You're going to see them again and again because they sit at the root of the conversation we're having. But I want to be honest with you about what data is and what it isn't. Data points are indicators. They tell you where we are. They do not tell you who we are. That they're a snapshot. And the snapshot is not a story. That's exactly what this show exists to do. Every time Terrence's team puts a number in front of us, we're going to take it to the men or take it to Black men, and we're going to ask, is this tracking? Does this match what you're living? And when it doesn't, that's not a problem at all. That's the interesting part. Because then the question becomes, what's in the numbers? What's missing? And what do these brothers know that the survey couldn't reach? That's the value of no translation. We're not here to be right at all. We are here to understand. The data helps us do that, including the times it shows us that the picture isn't complete. So I gotta say in advance, thank you to my brother Terrence and everybody at Hit Strategies. Having them as a partner means so much to this show, and you're going to see a lot more of their work as we move on. And if you want to follow them and what they're doing, and I think you should, this is the best research being done on us right now. It's hitstrat.com. Hit Strategies. That's hitstrat.com. Their own line is, behind every number, there's a story. We're going to figure out what that story is on this show, and we're going to talk about it a whole lot. When we come back, we're going to go into our first conversation. I hope it's a good one. I hope it's different. Hope you like it. Stay tuned.
All right, folks, let me get personal for a second. My mom had questions about her Medicare, so she called Chapter, a Medicare advisory company, and she texted me right after saying it's a great benefit. It was easy. A real person walked her through the whole thing, and now she understands better what's going on. But it's not just her. A woman in Yonkers wrote in saying the process was so simple, the enrollment was easy, and she was so glad she called. Then there's Marilyn, 90 years old, in Florida, living on Social Security. Her premium climbed every single year north of $400 a month for coverage she could barely afford anymore. So what does she do? She called Chapter. They found her the same top-tier coverage for hundreds of dollars less. 90 years old, and finally somebody in her corner. I hear stories like that again and again from our community. The Medicare system was not built to work for you. Too much fine print, too many plans. Yet Chapter's advisors are independent and honest, the only Medicare advisors that compare every plan nationwide. They're focused on one thing, what actually works for you. If you're already in the right plan, they'll tell you. No games. And people who switched with Chapter saved an average of $1,100 a year. All it takes is 20 minutes. You talk to a real person, and it's completely free help. So call Chapter at 724-264-8281, 724-264-8281. That's Chapter.
Hey, y'all, welcome back. I am incredibly excited to have you on No Translation, this first show of many. And as I thought about who I wanted one of my first guests to be, I wanted to bring somebody on who has had a commitment to our community, who has had a commitment to Black men, who has gone through his own and continues to go through his own evolution as a man and is comfortable enough to talk about it. But more than that, I wanted to bring on somebody who I trust. And there are very few brothers that I trust more than he. I'm not even going to belabor with a long introduction because you already know who he is. And if you don't, you got Google. So let me say what's up and welcome to No Translation, my dear brother and friend, Dr. Mark Lamont Hill.
What's happening, brother?
My
It's
man.
Good to see you, man.
So one, man, thank you for coming on.
Of course.
So Mark, when I thought about this show, I thought about the fact that we've got an election coming up. I thought about how Black men have and have not been discussed within the realm of electoral politics. I thought about what I thought was a debacle in how Black men were discussed in the last presidential, and the lack of complexity that's connected to Black men voting before having a conversation about who Black men are.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, and the other piece that I think is important is that for me, I'm amazed at how long we have, and you and I are not young, even though we're not old yet, but we've watched enough of these local, state, and federal election cycles where we engage each other through the lens of employers, through the lens of slave masters, through the lens of somebody else's talking points and issues. And very seldom have we in this modern political time found a way to say, wait a minute, how do we drop all this, come together as Black folks, whether we agree or not, and actually have conversation about us before we start having conversations through the lens of other people. And so I would love to bring you into this conversation through that lens. Like, what are you seeing, and how do you think about the trajectory of this moment, and how can we get to a place where we actually can talk to each other that we disagree with in a space and time that doesn't involve anybody else first?
That's right. I think there's so many pieces to that great question. I think first, when we think about the last election cycle, last presidential election cycle, part of the question, part of the problem that Black men had to wrestle with was that classic Du Boisian question of how does it feel to be a problem? Black men are so often framed as problem, crisis, a thing to be solved, a thing to be contained, a thing to be confined, a thing to be protected from. Even within our own Black community, when we talk about, Black women are achieving up here, why aren't the brothers doing that? Black women are winning over here, why are Black men losing over there? Black women know how to vote. Why are Negroes voting so improperly? And so even when the conversation about Trump comes up, there was a narrative being formed that basically, if Donald Trump is your president, it's because Black men voted wrong. Black women are voting at in the 90s for Democrats, and in this case for Kamala Harris. Negroes are not. And any reason that the Black man isn't voting for Kamala Harris was presented as a sign of patriarchy, a sign of you can't handle a powerful woman, a sign of you can't think straight, you're obsessed with Donald Trump, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, some of that is true. There's some people who just don't want a Black woman to be president. Yes. There are some people who just didn't want a woman in charge. There were some people who their vision of freedom, their freedom dream is to be as unaccountable and as unrestrained as Donald Trump is. Our freedom dream is to be powerful white men, not to be free Black men. That's not untrue, but that ain't the whole story of Black men. That ain't the main story of Black men. And we never got to that because the whole debate stayed around this question of why aren't Black men voting right? Even when President Obama spoke of to Black men and about this issue, that's the only piece that he talked about. And so we're singing this one note for Black men. And
there was no complexity.
No complexity at all. No complexity at all.
Here's what's interesting, Mark, and I probably, if I want peace, shouldn't even talk about this with you. But outside of, here are men who are just totally disengaged from the process. Here are men that just don't trust the process.
Right.
Here are men who trust themselves to do what they need to do, as opposed to even putting faith in anybody else.
That's right.
But the other thing that was never really discussed, Mark, was, here we go. Let me say this. I wrote a check for Kamala Harris in 1999 when she was running for
Attorney General,
District Attorney in San Francisco. I was National Youth Director of the NAACP. I've had a relationship with Kamala. I actually like Kamala, and I voted for her. So I want to be clear about that. But I used to talk to the campaign and say, one of the things I think that's a problem is Kamala Harris doesn't have a narrative for Black men in her life. How do we expect Black men to be excited about her? She has a Howard narrative. She has an AKA narrative. She has a professional Black woman narrative. She has a badass prosecutor narrative. But she didn't have a narrative about Black men, about marrying one, about what they meant to her. And in many cases, when you're a prosecutor, there's an assumed narrative that often, especially with her, was unfair, but an assumed narrative that you want to pursue Black men from a criminal perspective. But there just wasn't a narrative of Black men where we got to hear her say what we meant to her. And I don't know why that was lost on some people.
I think the argument they would make is Hillary Clinton didn't have one either. I'm not sure Barack Obama had a clear one either, other than him being one, et cetera, et cetera. I think you're right, by the way. I think, though, that they took the colorblind approach. I think that we don't have to do anything different approach. And maybe it is an unfair standard to which we're holding Kamala Harris. But I do think that there was something illegible about her candidacy and about her campaign with regard to Black men, from Black men, I'm saying. Now, for me, my issues with Kamala Harris didn't have anything to do with that. You know, I had some disagreements around policy. But, you know, and I felt like we had to make some pragmatic choices to keep, you know, the orange guy out the White House. So for me, the conversation was a different one. But I understood why Black men felt like that. I understood what they were saying. I could hear what they were saying. But because we hung up on that other note,
Yeah.
No one could even hear the point you're making, which is we don't know where we fit into your life, not your necessarily your personal life, or not exclusively your personal life, but also your broader vision of who we are and what the world could be. Because Black men are always disposable in public policy. We're always disposable in public campaigns. We're disposable in organizational structures. We're disposable at all these levels. So we have no reason to believe that even if we vote for you, our needs will be met. We have no reason to believe that our agenda will be advanced. It's not even clear what that agenda might be. And she made efforts to do so, particularly in the campaign. I don't want to pretend that she was silent on the issue.
Yeah.
But
and I think that's the challenge, Mark, because I think one of the dangerous things about having this conversation is because people don't really appreciate nuance.
Right.
And my bringing this up was less about what she didn't do and more about raising the understanding of why certain men reacted the way that they did.
Right.
And that's what I'm interested in. And so I hope those of you that are listening get that, like, this is not a post-mortem slap against her campaign. I actually think they tried to do some things. To be honest, without going down too far down the road, I think that there were some things they were stopped from doing as it relates to speaking to our community.
I'm sure.
But it really is this mosaic of why Black men weren't disconnected from Kamala, are disconnected from the political process. And then those who engage the political process, either through a lens of selfish or non-selfish individualism or straight up ignorance.
That's exactly right. And because it's the wild, wild west out here in terms of information consumption, a lot of the places where we feel the safest, the TV shows, the YouTube programs, the platforms, the podcasts, the radio stations, the places where we feel the safest aren't always the bastions of good information or critical nuance. And so sometimes we're doubling down on our fears and our insecurities. We're expanding our inventory of ideas, but they're not necessarily always good ideas because there's so many places that are unsafe for Black men. So if you already feel disengaged from the political process and then you turn on your favorite podcast and they're telling you all the reasons why you shouldn't vote at all, or all the reasons why you should vote for Trump, and you're in an echo chamber now, or you're reasonably progressive or reasonably thoughtful about things. Take progressive, I don't mean the politically progressive, I just mean you're open to ideas. But you're the only one in the room like that, then you can get bogged down by the weight of the rest of the room. And so I think that the availability or the accessibility of the political process and of the educational process wasn't always clear to us. But again, that gets flattened out and it becomes, these niggas don't care about information. These niggas don't care about, these niggas don't want to do, all these niggas want to do is da, da, da. And that becomes the conversation versus why have we made the decisions that we've made and how, and what functionality does that serve? Let me say something about that, because the functionality of some of this stuff is what people miss. I remember when we used to talk about the cool pose, we used to talk about ice grills, when we used to talk about looking tough in the 90s and 2000s, and we would talk about Black men and how they would take these hard exteriors and how that hypermasculinity was a stressor and how it scared people and how it stopped us from getting jobs and all this other stuff. But no one ever talked about the functionality of some of that hypermasculinity. Again, hypermasculinity is unhealthy and bad. I don't think I should have to say that, but I'm gonna say it. It's unhealthy and bad. But there was also functionality to it. Looking like I could whoop somebody's behind on the subway or walking down the street might mean that I'm less likely to get tested and I have to whoop somebody's behind or get my behind whoop walking down the street. Yeah. There was a functionality to some of these moves that we're making. Some of it was a protective gesture. Again, are there healthier ways to do that? Yeah, teach me some. But if you're so afraid of me because of that hypermasculine pose that you don't help me unpack and dismantle that hypermasculine pose, then you part of the problem. And similarly, when people say Black men are disengaged from the political process, but they don't understand why our distancing from that, why these other places appeal to us, why these figures appeal to us, these people appeal to us. If you don't understand that, you don't understand how that has a functional approach for us at the same time that it might be unhealthy. If you don't get all of that, then you're missing the story of Black men, and you're just singing that single note. Yeah. And the next time around, when we get to the elections, we're going to have the same problem. We got to get to the why of it. Why do black men feel disenfranchised? What do black men want? And
Well,
I don't want to speak of black men as a single note either.
Because I don't want to get far off from one thing that I heard you saying, which is it's interesting. Even when I think about Dunbar and we wear the mask, often even our intellectuals are processing that through what we do in white spaces, not what we do when we leave the house.
Right.
And so I'm curious, because the intentionality of it, which is something you mentioned, and that is normally reflective of your own personal journey, your own maturity, and your own growth. Because like I was telling somebody the other day, my dad went to the military, came home, used his military experience to go into an agency, and then came out and tried to navigate corporate. And he was part of that 1980s middle management group of black men that the brothers who are now corporate CEOs came out of. And we used to clown each other as boys and be like, you can tell whose dad's been in corporate the longest by who's got the least facial hair and the least bass left in their voice.
Right.
And
the bass is good.
Listen, because cats went from my name is Leroy and I'm an intern in finance to my name is Leroy and I'm the CFO. But I remember my dad saying to me once, he said to me once, Jeff, I don't code switch to hide. I code switch to leverage the rooms I'm in for other people. And so I think that there's a thing that we are dealing with in this dichotomy of black masculinity and the full spectrum of it, where some of us are code switching to hide and survive. And some of us are code switching to leverage the spaces we are for growth and thriving.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we acknowledge the spectrum of that.
No, not even amongst each other. Sometimes we're judging one person for making the opposite choice, or we only see shortcomings in the alternate approach. There's lots of reasons why black people, and specifically in this case, black men, make the choices that we make. And I think that we don't give ourselves enough grace. We don't give ourselves enough room for mercy when we talk about this stuff, much less the broader world. And so I think part of what we have to do in that context is to have those conversations. You started by talking about us coming together. Now, there's a lot of us's in there. There's black people, there's working class people, there's poor people, there's leftists, there's all kinds of us's we could get at. But one of them us's has to be black men, and across class, across race, across whatever. And I agree that we don't have to look at the world the same way for us to come together. I think that's a prerequisite. If we wait for that, that ain't never gonna happen.
Yeah.
I do think we do need to organize around some issues that we can all agree on. And maybe it's just our safety and our security and our dignity and our progress, whatever that looks like. If we start talking about should trans women play in the WNBA, or what do we do about Syria, or what do we think about offshore drilling, or whatever, who knows where we'll land, right? But like, we all can die out here.
Yes.
From preventable diseases, from law enforcement, from stress, from I mean, and not just the outside stress. I'm talking about the stress of like, I'm trying to juggle 15 things. I'm trying to pay the bills. I'm trying to keep the lights on. And I want my family to think that everything's okay so they don't worry. So I'm internalizing all of this. And I don't have a therapist.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't know how to be a partner.
Yes.
So I'm trying to shield the person I'm with as opposed to invite them into this with me.
Right. Right. If you say walk in the barbershop and say that, I don't care if we was disagreeing on every other point, every dude in that barbershop would be like, yeah.
But let me ask you this, because I do think there's a basement for me. And I think the basement for me is I can have a conversation with Black conservatives, and I don't mean MAGA, and I don't mean right-wing ideologues.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can have a conversation with a Black conservative who actually believes we have shared destiny.
Yes.
If you don't believe we have shared destiny, not only do I not want you on this show, I can't have a conversation with you because you fundamentally believe that you can thrive while I'm dying.
Right.
And I just think I don't remember the last time I heard anybody publicly talking about shared destiny before they started talking about policy.
They don't. Because this moment, and I hate to use these academic words, but this moment of neoliberalism where the market decides everything, and not just in terms of privatizing everything and all this austerity and efficiency and all that stuff. That's all the money side of it. But this moment also has brought cultural shifts. When you think about everything as privatized, you think of everything as about money and can it make the maximum dollar? When that becomes your guiding logic, then the public good is always getting trumped, no pun intended, by private interest. Yeah. And if private interest is always trumping the public good, then the individual becomes more important than the collective. Yeah. And so now the idea of I am because we are, right? The Ubuntu principle, that becomes discarded because we're encouraged to only think about me. When I win, it's because I did it, nobody else did it. And when I lose, you know what I mean? It's because I failed, not because I didn't get a fair shake, not because there's a structural problem, not because, there's no social safety net or welfare state, not because of any of these things. It's because I failed. And that's the logic that we start to develop. And so it's all about me all the time. And so shared destiny don't matter.
Know if I think that's new for men, for Black men.
I think that's right.
I'll speak for men. I'll say men, but because we're talking about Black men, I think that post-Reconstruction and this notion of when we think about moving into industrialization and what that meant by way of vocation, and that Black men were taught that their value was rooted in what they brought home. And as a result, there wasn't, even if you were a part of a union, you were still dealing with seniority within that union. And the reality was, what makes me a responsible man, let alone a responsible father, a responsible husband, is what I bring home.
That's right.
And that's always an individual process.
That's right. I think the only difference.
Our sisters on the flip side have been conditioned communally. They have been encouraged and affirmed communally. And when we do that as men, it's as if we're operating in philanthropy as opposed to in values. And I don't know how you feel about that, but I think
you're right.
This neoliberalism or neo-capitalism is not, it fuels this psychosis as opposed to started it.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think if anything, it normalizes it in the broader society. So I think you're right. I think we've always been forced to wrestle with that stuff. But I still had my value, like you said, my value before was decided by what I brought home. But at least I had a social safety net that made it easier to bring something home. At least we had a union that ensured that I could send my kids to college and I could deliver that to them. Yeah. Now, the individualism is still there, but all the social conditions that at least gave me a fighting chance with the psychosis are being stripped away. And now it's not just my own mind saying, damn, I failed as a man. It's all of society saying, if you're not rich, if your kids ain't college, if you ain't got 2.5 kids in the driveway in a car, it's because you failed. It's not the state's fault, it's yours. So I think you're right. It's everything's getting worsened by this moment, and it's happening faster than ever before. But it ain't new.
Let's lean into the positive there too, because I don't know about you, but I think that there's a generational shift happening that I see with Black men, where they are saying, I don't want to accept that reality. And so I think that you are seeing fathers that are choosing a good job versus a great one, that are saying, wait a minute, I do have in mind what's enough, because now I'm choosing between more and going to the flag football game, or more and doing homework. And so I do think there's a generation of Black men that are at least challenging some of these traditional norms. And I think we have to talk about that because, again, I don't think we can start talking about what our policy issues are and what our candidate choices are before we just have a full understanding of what brothers actually want. And even I think what brothers are wrestling with. And again, I'm using Black men and brothers in a broad stroke, because if we start dealing with the spectrum of masculinity, we're gonna see all kinds of shit,
right?
As it relates to what brothers need and want. But I am seeing a generational challenge to those old notions that I'm encouraged by, but I don't know if we've yet lifted them as more than cultural expressions versus cultural values.
Where do we do that at? I mean, one of the things I was thinking is, as you were talking, was people don't go to church anymore. Kids don't play outside.
Mark. We have fewer people.
Yes. Let me take that back. This generation is the least churched generation that we've ever seen.
Yes.
In Black America. That's what I'm trying to say. And it's the least synagogued and the least mosqued too. Like this generation of kids just don't go to, even if they have the same faith, they don't attend service. I'm thinking specifically about community. And if they do, a lot of them go to mega churches or they go online. So what ends up happening, I'm talking about spaces for community.
Yeah.
Our children don't play on the street anymore. So the parents aren't necessarily outside on the corner talking to each other while our kids play, because they're streaming or you know what I mean, or they're doing something else. I'm thinking about the shrinking spaces for us to be together in real life. Yeah. Even I get barbershop appointments now. I don't even be in the shop sitting around talking shit no more, the same way I would have 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I wonder how we can get a grip on each other's needs and desires and aspirations and fears and insecurities. The biggest place I get it now is working on a podcast where I'm blessed to work with 7 or 8 dudes. So I get to hear the stuff, not just what we talk about on air, but what we talk about when we stop down.
Yeah.
And I'm able to hear that. That's the most time I spend in a week. I mean, by far, in a week, a month, a year, whatever, around Black men. Whereas before, there were all these other places that I would do it.
And we didn't have to be, and pre-COVID, we didn't have to be as intentional.
Right.
So I don't know, Mark, if as men in particular who are less intentional about community than anybody else, if we've acknowledged the fact that COVID damaged a lot of community. And so whether it was the fraternal chapter meeting or the Elks Lodge, or whether it was your local watering hole, you talked about churches. I don't know the numbers, but I'm willing to bet that a third of cornerfront churches were killed by COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if we've been honest about that, but it's interesting you say that, because when I started to do this show, I'm working on another project because I was telling somebody, I don't think Black men need more content. I think they need more space.
All right, folks, let me get personal for a second. My mom had questions about her Medicare, so she called Chapter, a Medicare advisory company, and she texted me right after saying it's a great benefit. It was easy. A real person walked her through the whole thing, and now she understands better what's going on. But it's not just her. A woman in Yonkers wrote in saying the process was so simple, the enrollment was easy, and she was so glad she called. Then there's Marilyn, 90 years old, in Florida, living on Social Security. Her premium climbed every single year north of $400 a month for coverage she could barely afford anymore. So what does she do? She called Chapter. They found her the same top-tier coverage for hundreds of dollars less. 90 years old, and finally somebody in her corner. I hear stories like that again and again from our community. The Medicare system was not built to work for you. Too much fine print, too many plans. Yet Chapter's advisors are independent and honest, the only Medicare advisors that compare every plan nationwide. They're focused on one thing, what actually works for you. If you're already in the right plan, they'll tell you. No games. And people who switched with Chapter saved an average of $1,100 a year. All it takes is 20 minutes. You talk to a real person, and it's completely free help. So call Chapter at 724-264-8281, 724-264-8281. That's Chapter.
What's up, y'all? We are back on No Translation. I am so excited that y'all are joining me for this first show. One of the things that's important to me as we talk about understanding men is truly understanding where we are, some of the things that we deal with, why we're dealing with it. And for those of you that are constantly looking for accountability from Black men, this is not about making excuses for us. This is about really understanding our stuff, our traumas, our issues, not as a way to let us off the hook, but as a way of seeing us and understanding us and hopefully encouraging accountability. And so even with voting, there was so much conversation around why did Black men not want to support Kamala Harris? And those of us that know the numbers know that the vast majority of Black men came out for Kamala Harris. And there were some that didn't turn out at all. There were some that voted for Trump because they were ignorant. There were some that voted for Trump because they believed that their money would be better. And there were some that voted for Trump for a bunch of other reasons. I was just so interested that we never had the conversation of men's psychology and what it was that they needed and wanted and how they show up in the electoral process. And so one of the things that I want to do on our show with some level of regularity is bring in brothers who are doing clinical work, in some cases doing social work, but who are engaging men on a regular basis and can speak from their perspective, not about every Black man, but can speak from their perspective about what they're hearing and seeing in the work that they're doing. And so I'm incredibly thankful to my brother, Quentin Giles. He is from Houston, and he is running what I'm thinking is an incredibly exciting firm called Imago Dei Firm. And I was just excited the other day to see him online hiring Black clinicians as he's doing some of the work that he's doing. So to my new No Translation family, welcome my brother to the show. Brother Quentin, thanks for being with us, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really interested and ready for this conversation.
So, man, can you tell us a little bit just about the work that you do and how you're showing up in Houston and other places with Black men?
Yeah, well, I'm a therapist, psychotherapist here in Houston, Texas. And when I originally started some 2.5 years ago, my desire was to serve Black men. And the way in which my practice has shaped, I've been able to do that. I've been able to, help men across the city. But then somehow, somewhere, my interest level developed into serving couples because I do believe that relationships are the bedrock of our communities. And so what I began to see was that couples would come to me, typically the wife or the woman would bring, the man, and he would be there begrudgingly. But once you sit down with me and we really get into it and realize that therapy, at least therapy with me, is not what you think it is or what you've seen on TV or this overly dramatic beat up on the man type of session. I have found that men become more comfortable and then they peel out and I become their individual therapist as well, while also serving them, serving them, their wives, their girlfriends, and their relationships. So I've been doing that for a couple of years, really, really passionate about it, really love seeing the transformative work that takes place from a man understanding his own emotions and feelings because we too are human, but the way we've been socialized by other men and in boy culture, a lot of us have minimized our experiences, minimized what we think, minimized what we feel. And so being able to really stand alongside of him in the gap and help him reclaim some of that and pull that back up and be able to communicate that and advocate for himself has just been my life's work. And so I'm really, really proud and happy to be doing what I do.
Yeah. And we're going to have another show about that work.
Yeah,
that's a whole other piece.
Yeah.
So, man, listen, in the conversations that you've had, and again, I think you heard my introduction. I'm not looking for you to be able to speak for every Black man. That's impossible. But in general, as you're working with men and speaking with men, we saw data that showed that most Black men in a poll that my brother Terrence Woodbury did was that in the 90th percentile, they care about money, they care about their job, they care about access to healthcare, and they care about being able to create a future that is better than the past. And so much of that is rooted in safety and security. And that's what every human wants. But can you talk a little bit about, like, what are some of the nuanced things you're hearing Black men say about, let's start with some of the things that they're concerned about, some of the things that they feel like are standing in the way of their personal growth.
Yeah. Well, that research hit it right on the head. That's what I'm experiencing and hearing from these men as well. Just that the economics of a man is very important to him, right? Money is very important. Money pays our bills. Money ensures we can eat. Money ensures that we have the transportation if you're in a city that you need to have one, like in Houston. Money also ensures that there's a certain safety net that you can be able to access in the event that something happens, so you can not only care for yourself and for your family. And so the economic situation just of the state of the country and then of the Black man is very dire to him. And what I'm often hearing when sometimes some of these emotional, let's just say, arguments come up, or there is some disagreement with him and his woman, or he is having issues in society or issues, with the family, a lot of that has come from, not all, but a lot of it has come from just this overwhelming burden of not having the economics that he feels that he needs. And I would go far beyond and saying not even just what he feels that he needs, that the data says that he needs in order to be, to thrive instead of just survive. That is a thing that's really hampering him and burdening him in such a way that is contributing to him not being able to move forward.
What are you seeing too, man? Because one of the things that I'm hearing when I talk to brothers a lot is that we are actually defining ourselves by the bag. And so as you're talking to men and working, is there this dichotomy? Is there this conversation that we need to have that money is real? You got to have it to take care of your family. You got to have it to be able to move to the next level. But the money you make, whether it's down here or up here, is not actually defining who you are.
Yeah. Short answer, yes, that is a conversation we need to have. But I think we also need to understand why that would even be an ideology for a lot of men.
Yeah.
We live in a hyper-capitalistic society. And, as much as I or maybe someone else may want to change that, the truth is that's where we are. And so money in this land rules the world. And so it is reinforced in our narrative. It's reinforced in our music. Not even just when I say our music, I don't even just mean Black music, because so often we look at, rappers and say, well, look what they're glorifying. I can listen to a country music song and they glorifying it just the same. It just sounds different. So it's constantly being reinforced. So it makes sense why a man would believe that he is his money and his money is him. But I do think there is a lot of work. Say again?
I said it's being reinforced on Tinder.
That too. Come on now, swipe left or right. And so I do think there's a conversation that needs to continue to be had, with men one-on-one and collectively, to show that, to really understand the importance of money, to respect the value of money, because there is some respect we got to put on money's name, because again, it supplies access to our needs, but also to divorce himself from the ideology that he is his money and his money is him. Because the truth is, he's more than his money. The truth is, he's a person who people care about, who people love. The truth is, if he gets access to his own emotions and thoughts and feelings and stops minimizing himself, he can then live out the full human experience instead of this faux human experience that he has been socialized to live in.
We're in a really interesting space in this time in history. And I think that we have seen not so much the rise, but I think we've seen so many things get out of the way of our sisters in a way that they've been able to thrive. And so whether it's Black women CEOs, whether it's the number of Black women that are at colleges and universities, we are seeing, even in the midst of the crazy world that we're in, Black women doing their thing.
They are.
And
they are.
For some reason, there's either a narrative or there's this feeling that Black men and women are actually competing. And I hear sometimes from a lot of brothers that They don't know where Black men fit, because as there is this Black girl magic happening, or this ascension of Black women into their own just full, wonderful, amazing growth, that doesn't exist the same way for Black men. Are you hearing that? Do you see that? Does that track? And how does that then impact how brothers think about not just an election, but more importantly, how they fit into the advancement of our people?
Yeah. Do I see that? 100%. Where I think it's based out of or built from is really deep insecurity. The one thing that I see that Black women in particular go to, access, will curate is community for themselves. And so it's not really a hard wonder as to why, if a unit continues to ensure that the unit is going to thrive, that they would then move up the ladder. What I see with Black men is we got the boys, we got friends, but we are not communal in the same way. And part of that is okay because we're not a woman. So let me normalize that. Part of that is okay, but we are not utilizing the same type of system and access to lift each other up as we go. We could be very well on par with them if we, felt comfortable enough to do something similar. And so why I said insecurity earlier, when we talk about, really the comparison and where do I fit into this whole thing, that's birthed out of an insecurity. That's birthed out.
But talk more about that, right? Because we know we all got boys. But what are some of the underlying reasons why men don't build community the same way?
Yeah, I think that's because I choose to believe that we do everything because we are a collection of our experiences, right? I don't put my hand on a hot stove because I've been burned before, so I'm not going to do that again, right? Experience dictates how I show up. When I say boy culture, I'm talking about really young pivotal moments where a boy is coming into his own, hormones may kick on, he's growing, but we have been socialized by older men to not show a certain level of vulnerability, right? Because vulnerability means weakness. And to be sure, that too, everything makes sense in context. That makes sense if you look at an older generation and what our forefathers had to endure in order that they would survive. And so it makes sense why they would then pass that down to us out of a position of care, which we can now affirmatively say has been harmful. Let's just normalize that. So it makes sense why men are not as communal, because to tell you that I need you to pick up the phone and say, hey, my finances are not good. Do you have something? Do you know someone that can help me? That's a vulnerable position to be in. And I have been socialized all my life to not be vulnerable, because if I'm vulnerable, I don't survive.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I think we're beginning to see differences, especially generationally in that.
Yeah.
But that is right on. I think it's one of the reasons why, I mean, you and I were talking before we came on the show that as Black women get older, they become more communal and more social. And a lot of Black men, as they get older, become more isolated. Almost all of us know an uncle or a father or a pop who sits in front of the TV by himself, who doesn't go and connect with people. And so often it's rooted in, how do I feel about myself at this stage in my life? And the fact that I've spent a whole life trying to build and grind, but not create relationship.
Not connect. 100%. 100%. You right on the money with that. I do think you mentioned generationally, it is changing, but there's still such a barrier to entry, because in order for me to be vulnerable as well, to be in that communal space, I got to know what I'm feeling. I have to tap into that, right? I have to, be able to sit with myself and go through, that doesn't mean I have to cry and weep all the time. When I say feelings, typically men, well, I don't want to cry. Well, I'm not talking about crying. I'm not saying you have to cry, but you may get agitated. You may get frustrated. You may be jubilated, right? You may have some apathy around something. There are a lot of emotions we can experience. And so I think it starts with us continuing what we are doing now, which is trying to get more in touch with ourselves, trying to get in touch with what we want, what we need, what we desire, what we disdain, and then being able to communicate that. And the more we're able to do that, especially amongst men, I truly believe the more we will be able to be more communal, which does require the vulnerability I was talking about earlier.
So before I let you get out of here, I think there's also this issue around power.
Yeah.
And I think that there are a lot of people, but a lot of men and Black men in particular, that have processed and see power through a certain lens. And as a result, it translates into who they think can lead, what they think they can get out of it. But also, I know a lot of brothers who don't vote because they feel like they're giving power away.
Yeah.
And so can you talk about, I think, any of the work that you've done and how you've heard Black men talk about how do they process their own power and giving power away?
Yeah. One thing that I've heard quite often is that they've seen, or they perceive at least, the game to be rigged and has been rigged for so long that if I vote, if I show up, and this is not all, but if I show up and I participate in that, then I'm participating in my own demise, or I'm participating in foolishness because we already know it's rigged. Thought process, right? Whether you agree or disagree, that is how some of us perceive it. And so I really think it comes from, in one sector, not wanting somebody to play in your face. And even if you do play in my face, I'm not going to play along like I don't know you playing in my face by voting in a quote unquote rigged system, right? On the other end, I love how you frame, who some of us perceive can be in power and can be in leadership. And if we just, if we want to touch, our last presidential, I did hear had a lot of conversation with a lot of men about if a woman could or could not lead and what that would mean if he would cast his vote, for a woman. What is he saying really about himself, not about her, right? And so it goes back to an internal potentially issue or crisis, in that I view strength and I view power and I view access in a certain way. And so I have to align. It needs to look like that for me to feel like I'm going to get something out of it. And so again, right, wrong, or indifferent, that is the perception from some Black men. But I do think that there's a lot of work that can be done there, right? Because the truth is anybody can lead. And to be clear, leader doesn't, it may have a positive connotation, but I know, like, we got good leaders and we got bad leaders.
Yeah.
Leading is just a gift. It's just an ability to have someone follow you. So anyone can have that gift. How we perceive who we will cast our lots behind or who we will get behind as we move forward is a lot of work that we have to do internally, because it should be about the record.
We could get lost in an entire psychosis of those that voted for Trump versus those that voted for Kamala Harris. But I think the bigger issue is, how do we process power? What are the things that we've learned that make us think power looks one way versus another way? And as men, actually realizing, how do we exercise our power in a way that serves us versus makes us look strong?
Yeah. Well, I think
go ahead,
question, the question one must ask is, how have I experienced power? If I've experienced power, whoever the powerful figure was in my life, if I've experienced power in a way that was brutal and that was aggressive and that was dominant and that was forceful and that was unkind and that was unloving and that was unjust, I will then grow to have that as the image of what true power is and expect it. If I've not experienced anything differently, then I may not be able to perceive when I actually see power manifested in a different way.
And then there's the other piece that I think that Black men are constantly dealing with. When you have felt neutered and you have felt like your power has been taken away on a regular basis, there also is an overcompensation of feeling like I have to have a expressive power that is aggressive and loud in order to protect myself against those still coming to take power from me. And I think we fall for that a lot within the political system, which is partly why I wanted to do this show, because I'm tired of brothers, because we're only talking about men right now, but I'm tired of Black folks that get power by getting a position or a title from somebody else. And then coming into our space, leveraging I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican or I'm a liberal or I'm a socialist or I'm a conservative or I'm this, and now carrying somebody else's talking points without saying, wait a minute, I'm Black before I'm any of that.
Yeah.
And the power that I have is to actually prevent any of those things from dividing me from my brothers and sisters where it's not necessary. And so, listen, Quentin, I'm just excited that you're willing to come on. I hope that you'll come on again. I hope that you'll plug us into your network at Imago, and we can have some other brothers and sisters come in who are clinicians, because this piece is critical. We don't want to be in a place where we're judging Black men before we understand them. And for those of us that are hell-bent on accountability, even accountability is easier to encourage when you understand why somebody made the decisions that they did. So thank you, brother. Can you tell people where they can follow you, where they can find more information about the firm?
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for having me. You can find me on all social platforms at Quentin R. Giles. You can even go to QuentinRGiles.com to learn more about the practice within itself.
You all, this is the end of our first episode. No Translation was created as a love letter to Black men, that we would be able to understand our brothers before we talk about why we turn out to the polls. This close is normally going to be a time where I celebrate an organization or a brother who's doing amazing work in our community for Black men and for us. But right now it is a request. What's going to make this show great is that we're able to show and highlight as many voices of as many different brothers as possible. And the only way I can do that is with you. I won't be able to get every brother on. But let me know who we should be talking to. The only thing I ask is that, number one, you can speak to the work that they do, not just the opinion that they have, and that they're willing to speak from their own perspective about their needs, their concerns, their aspirations, their joys, the things that come into play and frame their politic. And last but not least, because it's the most important, is that they love Black folks. I don't care if you're a conservative or a liberal or anything in between. I can't have you on if you hate Black people. And I can't have you on if you don't understand at least a little bit the notion of shared destiny, because none of us can thrive while others of us are dying. That's what this is about. That's what No Translation is about. So let me know. Hit me at Jeff's Nation on IG. And let me know the brothers that we should be looking out for. We're going to reach out to as many as we can, and we're going to feature as many voices as possible. Until the next time, thanks for joining. And above all else, be good to each other, because we truly do need each other to thrive. Take care.